As many of you will know, CT, Campbell Tickell, we're 20 years old this year. We've changed rather a lot as a consultancy over that time. I think it's fair to say that we've always been keen in our work to learn the lessons of history to inform what we do, but at the same time, we've also been especially keen to think about what's new, what's coming, what's next, in the interests of the organisations we work with, so that we can work with them, work with you to help your organisations prepare for what you may need to face up to in order to sustain and grow and to deliver the kind of services that you're seeking to deliver for your clients, your residents, your service users. This event is about something a bit different. We want to think about what may be happening in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, maybe even in 20 years' time.
There's a golden thread of integrity, and in their different ways, I think they have a role in fostering the pipeline of diversity of talent that leadership teams need today to be high performing. And I think it's no coincidence that Campbell Tickell has chosen a panel like that. We are a bunch of quirky individualists, as you might expect from consultants. And actually what we found is that when we work at our best, we work diversely. And I'd like to think that some of us have danced our ways out of our constrictions and that we're trying to sort of deepen that groove for others now. That's a Funkadelic reference for those of you who like your music.
You know, that demographic change is clearly going to put pressures on health, how we fund health. It's probably going to mean we have to pay more tax, and I think it adds to the burden on young people in terms of how they're going to have to help fund the pensions and healthcare costs of people. And you know, if, like me, you've had elderly relatives in social care at any point in the recent past, you'll understand there are some significant challenges in that sector that we don't seem at the moment on the way to addressing. I guess one of the hopes there is as the younger population that is there comes through the system, hopefully their values do appear to be more enlightened maybe than some of us who've been stuck around for a long while.
There will be a lot more rich people in the East than there will be in the West. Probably 1.5 billion, something like that in the East. The big issue with demographics is this: who's going to provide the resources for the large old population in rich countries? Is it going to be migrants? Politically, that's going to be difficult. Is it going to be the robots? Maybe the robots will do it for us. If it's neither of those things, then one big thing could happen, and that is that the rich people and the relatively old people in the rich West might find that their savings don't buy them what they expected it to do, because simply because the younger generation is smaller, etc., etc.
And another one which relates to this, finally, this is why the air conditioner is up there, is this question of urban heat index, which affects all of us. These are from Hong Kong. Certainly all over Asia, you find this kind of situation where air conditioners are everywhere. My contention, some of you guys may not believe me, I could be wrong, is that at some point pretty soon, London and cities like it that don't have air conditioning will hit a summer like, right, that's enough of that. And you'll find tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands, rushing out to buy window-mounted air conditioners, pushing up the heat island even more and making our lives in the city that much more intolerable. So that's not very good. But by and large, I would say that I have a little, despite saying that, a little bubble of hope inside this big negativity. One of the reasons for that is that humans are infinitely adaptable. One of my favorite films, maybe some of yours, is Blade Runner. This is supposed to be 2019 in LA. It's actually burning right now, not raining. But the idea being that we have survived so much in terms of plague, famine, other ice ages, things like that. We are either fixers or we tolerate things as a human species. Look for new sources of information, get out of your sector, read economics if you're not an economist, I wonder if you guys have a stand-up circuit for economy. But find things that are in tech, science, whatever you don't do, read further and find out more and encourage that culture in your organizations.
So what is it that's actually stopping us from a social and an economic perspective that means we don't do that? Is it the drive to have more money? Is it the drive to be better? Is it a drive to be the biggest state nation in the world? We have the opportunity to do things differently, and what is that going to call from us both individually and also at societal level? What do we need in terms of leadership? We've talked about globalisation and changes within the UK. Actually, from a leadership model, we're probably going to be looking at more of a distributed leadership model. We're going to have people working all over the place from home. There aren't going to be offices. How do we actually manage people differently? And how do we shift that balance of power and control and accountability from a charity sector perspective?
I think the key headline really that I'll say is from a diversity and inclusion point of view, and that's really what I'm going to speak about mainly. I think we are going to see progress towards a more diverse and inclusive environment for people to work in, both in terms of representation and how that feels. But the progress is going to be slow. And it's probably not going to be where we'd like it to be in 20 years' time, and we'll probably look back and think, probably could have moved the dial a bit more quickly than we have done today. Well, I did find UK data stats. I looked at the venture capital industry in particular. 60% of them don't have a diversity inclusion champion or head or anybody who's actually got any time or attention dedicated to this beyond their own personal interest. 47% don't have any policies whatsoever relating to that. Almost 50% of them have not even a mission statement around it.
The third that I want to talk about, which is really important, especially in times of uncertainty, is the idea of value and how it's being redefined. So there are functional aspects of value that are still the priority across all the demographics that we look at. The need for quality at low prices is increasing. So 70 to 80% of households will be in flat or falling income segments in the next decade. And it's also about maximizing our spend. So over 70% of people agree they shop around extensively to get the best deals. Mm-hmm. So there you're looking at the balance between what's worth more to me, my money or my time. And in the case of looking for a deal, it's my money. And that leads into this concept of savvy shopping, polarizing the loyalty landscape. So there's really no such thing as loyalty when value has such a high priority for people. And people who may have considered themselves loyal to brands will find themselves trying something else just because there's a deal on it. We care more about social responsibility now as a society, but it's a clear disconnect. So we say that supporting the environment is important. 60% of UK consumers agree that companies should be punished for lack of green credentials, but personal priorities take precedence. The same 60% agree that companies should focus on giving value and good service and minimize their social responsibility. Also, in the space of social responsibility, transparency is something that must be earned by businesses.
And that is the narrative now, blaming the poor for being poor. And I think the struggle for that narrative, the struggle to establish the idea that an equal society is probably a more efficient society, that in a world that depends upon people consuming, it doesn't make sense to have workers who can't afford to consume. A lot of organisations are busy transforming, but none of them have actually transformed. That's one of the ironies at the moment. And I think between now and 2040, we need to see real transformation, real reinvention, real openness to customers. Housing associations need to be as smart as Tesco's, ideally even smarter. But we need to be there, learning what people want, catering for new lifestyles, involving people in decisions and being on their side. So an optimist, but a qualified optimist, because it's going to be a struggle.